Welcome back to Design, Build, Launch. Today is episode 5 of the course. Today, we're creating a full content management system to create all of our project pages for our portfolio website. We're also throwing a contact page there at the end and linking everything up with our links so we can navigate through our website. If you missed the last video where we finished off this homepage design, make sure you click the link on the screen now or in the description to get caught up. With that said, let's get started. So for work, we're going to create a CMS. Now I'm going to hit CMS and it's going to say import or add blog. I'm going to add blog, and don't worry, we are going to rename all of this in a minute. And that's going to bring us to the CMS page. And so how this essentially works is you have articles here. And if we go to edit fields, we have these different fields that we can allow someone to come in here and say add new item, and they can plug these fields in and it will create one of these, and that will make a page. So if I go back to our project now, we have this blog page. You can see each one of the blog articles, and for each one of those articles, we have a page corresponding to it. And you can see it changes as we go. So what we want to do first is change this from a blog, since we don't actually want a blog. We want to rename the CMS to work or whatever you want. And then I'm going to go into the CMS itself, and we don't need categories, so we're going to go ahead and delete that. And then I'm going to rename articles to projects. And then we can just right click on each one of these and delete them. So now we're ready to start basically from scratch. So what we need to do first is not actually add a blog post, because we don't need this setup. We want something custom. So we want to go to these 3 little dots on projects and edit fields. And here is where we're going to set up our custom page. So we do need a title, but we're going to call it project name, and let's make sure that is required. Then the slug is just going to be like the blog dash, you can see the post title. So whatever we give the project name, it will inherit based on that here. So that's good. We can set a date, and then we have an image and content in here. The content is basically just going to allow you to type in a bunch of text. We don't need that since we're just going to be using images. So I'm going to right click and remove it. Now, when it comes to the structure of our page, I basically can show you this in Figma. Here is the image assets for this project. So I have a header or a thumbnail. So that's going to be one of the sections. Then I have a GIF for each one of the projects. So if I hit play on this, you can see it is a GIF. And then I have 3 images, and these are just going to be the featured images. And that's all of the content we need for all 3 projects. So let's go ahead and add those fields in. So instead of image, let's call this cover image or thumbnail, and we do want this to be required. Then we can duplicate this 3 times, and we'll call this featured 1. We do want it required. Featured 2, and finally featured 3. So we have our cover image and our 3 featured section. I'm going to duplicate the cover image one more time, and I'm going to call this one GIF. So if you have the GIF, you can go ahead and add that. If not, you can just delete this one. So we have required on that as well. So that's the initial setup for this done. We will come back in here and edit this later in the video, but for now, we can start generating our projects. So I'm going to go here and click new item, and you can see we have project name, slug, date, cover image, GIF, and our featured. So this is perfect for our page. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this out for all 3 of my projects. So once you've uploaded everything for a project, just hit save draft, and that's going to get that ready for when we publish next time. It will go up live. So we have all 3 of these projects now in here. I'm just going to rearrange these in the order I want them in. And like I said, since this is modular, you can add as many as you want. So for now, I'm just going to use these 3. So with that set up, we need to actually set up the pages. So if we go back to our work page, you'll see that some of this has transferred over since we used some of the same fields, but most of this is broken. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to grab everything on this page and delete it. And I'm going to do the same thing for the project pages themselves. I'm going to grab everything and delete it. So let's set up the work page first. If you remember, we've been using a custom width just to match the Figma design. So I'm going to set that to 1568. And we already have a layout on here since they had one before. So I'm just going to make sure this is perfect. So we want this centered, start, centered, and I don't want a gap. And then let's set all of the padding to 0. So first, let's add a section for our content in here. So I'm gonna hit F on the keyboard and just drag one out. Let's go ahead and set this up. So let's do 100% width. So we'll just set that to relative and 100. And then we'll set the height to 100 VH. Now that we've set a height value and we have some content inside of this desktop, we can go here and make sure this is set to fit content, which it is. Perfect. Let's call this frame just simple section since we're only going to have one of them. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a layout onto this. I'm going to make sure it's vertical and then centered, and let's just remove the gap for now. Everything else is good to go. We can go ahead and remove this fill now. I'm going to drag the viewport down a little bit to match our design just because I want a little bit more space. And now we can start to work with the data that we put inside of the CMS. So how we do this is a little bit different. We can't just put a frame on the page and then go here and just say, well, I want this to be the cover image. It doesn't work like that. There's a specific way we have to do this. It's pretty simple once you get used to it. Just go to Insert. Then under the Collections tab, you can see you have Collections. You just want to drag this element and just drop it onto the screen. So this element is going to allow us to link to our CMS and pull all of the data from that. So we just got to make sure we add that. So I'm simply going to set this to fill. So it fills the entire page. And since I have 3 projects, I'm going to go ahead and set the limit to 3. So it automatically generates this project for us. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So we just have the projects now. And so you notice by deleting that, if I go ahead and add a frame in there, it automatically adds this to that collection because it's pulling from that element since it's inside of it. So you can see we have 3 of them since we specified a limit of 3. So let's also remove the gap in between these sections. That way they're all touching. And we'll go ahead and start to customize this frame, which I will just call, once again, project like they had it. So we have our projects element, and then inside of it, we have each of the 3 projects. So for the project itself, let's go ahead and set it to relative 100% for the width. And then the height will be 100 VH. So it will be the entire viewport. Now you notice we have one above here, and that's simply because we need to go here and just start the distribution at the start. And that's going to make sure that the first one is filling up the page first, and then the second and third one are down below. So let's go ahead and remove the fill on this. I'm simply going to go up to Layout and then add a column and drag one out. So now that we have our columns, I'm going to go back up to Project, and we're going to edit the layout a little bit. So let's make sure we have a layout on here. Just a simple vertical stack will do. Then if we select our stack, we can go ahead and set this to fill, and that will automatically fill the screen for us. Perfect. Since we use the columns, it already comes with a layout. The only thing I'm going to do here is change the gap to 32, so we have a little bit bigger of a gap between these. And then I want to push this down a little bit, so let's go to padding. And on the top, I'm going to set it to about 104. And that's going to make room for our navigation later on when we add that. Let's select both of these frames holding shift, and we'll just go over here and remove the fill for now. I'm going to grab the first frame here, and this is where the magic of CMS comes in. Since we have this inside of this project's element, you'll see we have this plus next to the fill and these various other things. So I can click that. I'm going to set variable, and you can see we have all of the different sections that we added to the project data in the CMS. I want the cover image, so I'll just click that. And now it's pulling the cover image for each one of these. To style this, let's go ahead and add a 8-pixel radius to the corners. That's pretty much all we need to do here. We'll grab the next frame, and for this one, I'm going to set the width to 0.4, which is automatically going to stretch that image over. And this time, we're going to have our skills displayed in here, so I'm going to add a layout to this, and I'm going to set it to align on the left, and we're going to do a space in between, and I'll show you why in just a minute. And I believe that's all we need, so let's just go ahead and add some text in here. And this text style, let's set it to our body alt. And then let's go ahead and break that link and go ahead and start customizing it. We'll set this to white. And I think that's all we need to do. So this is going to be the date. So what we can do is go to content. You'll see we have this plus here. So if we click that, set variable, and simply select the date. And then we can just hit whatever one we want. I'm going to hit format date. Command D to duplicate that. And you'll see it puts one down here at the bottom. For now, I'm going to right click and wrap this in a frame and then duplicate that a few more times. Let's add a layout to this and we'll make sure it's set to stack vertically. We'll align them to the left and we'll go ahead and remove the gap. And I'm going to rename this stack skills. Now we can't really see anything down here, so let's go to the width and height and fix that. So fill, one fraction, and fit content. And now you'll see we have all three of these in here. And let's up the gap a little bit to 4 or so we have some space between them. And let's add 4. And so that's going to give us 4 of these down here at the bottom. Now what I want to do here is have the different skills or disciplines that we used on this project displayed here. We don't actually have that set up, so let's go to the CMS once again, click the 3 little dots on project, and edit fields. Now here, I'm just going to go up to the plus, and let's add a plain text. I'm going to call it skills 1, and since we are going to have a skill for each of them, I'm going to make sure it is required. And then we can duplicate that and set it to required no, and duplicate it 2 more times until we have 4 different skills. So we have 4 slots open. If you only want 2 or 3, or you want 7, go ahead and duplicate these as many times as you want. So now if I go into one of these projects, you'll see down here, skill 1 is required, and then we have 3 other slots available. For the ones that don't have any more skills, I'm just gonna leave those blank. So we only have 2 for this one. I've now added all of those. So we can go back to our page now. And instead of having the date in this one, I'm going to start from the top, go to content once again. This time we're going to set variable to skill 1. You'll see it updates there. And we'll do that for the remainder of these, setting each one to the corresponding skills. There's 2, 3, and skill 4. So now we have our cover image displayed. We have the date, and then we have each one of the different skills populating for each one of our projects. So now let's have a title down here and then a link to view the project. To do that, I'm going to go to layout and I'm going to grab a column again and just drag one out. I'm going to call this bottom section. Then I'm going to grab bottom section and I'm just going to drag this straight up and drop it in here. It is nested inside of the project itself below that stack we have up top. With that, I'm going to go ahead and set this to fill and then the height to fit content. We can adjust the gap to 32. And I'm going to put a little padding on the top just to get it away from the content above. So we'll go up here and hit top 32. And I'll just give it some space there so this area can breathe. Then I'm going to hit T on the keyboard and type in some text. And that's going to go in the first frame here. And I'm just going to call this heading frame. And then we'll call this other one link frame so we can stay organized. I'm going to drag this out a little bit so you can see the naming here. And let's go ahead and style this. I'm going to go in here and grab the heading 1 size. We'll do nicely. Then we can go ahead and break that. And we'll set this to white. And I'm going to make sure this one is left aligned. And then instead of typing in the title by hand, of course, we want to make sure this is dynamic. So we're going to go to content, set variable, and we're going to give it the project name. And you'll see that it updates. Now for the positioning, we'll go up to its parent, the heading frame, and we'll add a simple layout to this. And we'll make sure it's vertical. And I'm going to align this to the left. And then we can remove the gap since we're only going to have one element there. And now what we can do is set this to fit content on the height so it fits around the word. And let's go ahead and remove that blue color as well. Now we have our title, and now we just need a link to view the project. Now to create that, I'm simply going to go over here to my pages, go back to the home page, and I'm just going to grab this link right here. So that is the Explore link, and I'm going to copy that with Command C, go back over to Work, select this link frame, and paste that in. So now we have that inside of here. And now all we got to do is go to the parent, the link frame, remove the fill, and then add a layout onto this. With this one, I'm going to make sure the content is set to the right because I want it all the way over to the right. And then we can just remove the gap. And for the sizing of this, I want both to fit around the content. And we'll set the align down here to the bottom. So now we need some padding since everything's kind of touching the edges. For that, I'm going to go to the project here, nested inside of projects. And we're going to add some padding on the right of 32, on the left of 32, and then on the bottom of 32 as well. So you'll notice that that gets that away from the edge, and this is looking like a much, much better section. And then before I forget, let's go ahead here and update this text to view project. Also, I forgot to mention in this video, if you're not seeing the other projects listed below, they should be here. If not, it's because overflow is set to hidden. So make sure you go to your section and set the overflow to visible. And then its parent would be the desktop. Same thing here. Make sure it is set to overflow visible. Now to finish this page off, you might be noticing we're missing the navigation and our cursor. So let's go ahead and go to Pages, Home, and let's grab in the Layers panel the cursor. And then I'm also going to hold Command and I'm going to grab the nav link and the logo. I'm going to Command C to copy that. And then we're going to go over here to the work and then paste this in. So again, I like to put these up at the top. So there's cursor. So I remember we have that now. And then for the nav logo and links, we're just going to grab both of these and stick them above the section. And since we copied and pasted these in here, it has broken their position. So I'm going to select the logo, go to Fixed, and make sure it's set to the top and the left at 32 for both of them. And then for the nav links, it's fixed. And then the opposite, the top and right at 32 and 32. So now we have our navigation on the page. Now let's add our cursor, which is super easy. We just select the desktop itself, go down to cursor, add custom cursor, and then we're going to grab our cursor component and we're going to set it to the same defaults we had on the home page. So follow, left aligned, and then -12 for both of the values. And then for the transition, we had it around 311, 76, and then 1 for the mass. So now we have our cursor on the page, and you can see it's automatically contrasting the rest of this, which is nice. And we can scroll through each of our projects. So now that we can go to each project, we need to actually set up the project pages. So I'm going to select that. And these are actually pretty easy to set up because we don't need to use that custom collection item anymore. Because since this is already a page under projects, it's going to inherit the information from projects. So if I go here and just click on one of these random fills, you can see we can set the variable to any of these. So it's much easier to set up because all we have to do is just add content to this. So first, let's go ahead and set this to 1568 in width. And I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff in here. So let's go back to the work page itself. And this section down here where we have the link and the title, let's go ahead and copy that because there's no reason to remake this. And under desktop, we'll just paste this in. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that it's renamed to top section. So with the top section, we need to go to the text now and make sure this is once again linked to the project name. And then over here, instead of having the link frame, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. And then we're going to go back over to our work page, grab these skills, copy them, and paste them in just like so. I want to make sure that each one of these is one frame. So we're just going to go ahead and set that to fill. So we have one frame here and one frame on the heading. Now with the skills, we want to make sure these are aligned to the right so they'll look a little better. And then I also want to make sure that each one of these texts is now aligned to the right. And if we link these, we'll go to content, set variable, skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, and skill 4. If we swap over to a different one, you'll see that they update, and that's looking pretty good. We've got some default padding on the desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that and set the gap to 32. Since we're going to have 32 spacing between each of our sections here in the desktop. So now that we have the top bar here, let's add our navigation. And to do so, we need to make room for it. So I'm going to grab the top section, and under padding for the top, I'm going to change this to 104, which is the same space we left on the work page up here at the top for these. So we'll grab the nav logo and links, copy those, and throw those in. Make sure they are once again set to the proper fixed values and drag them above the top section so they're on top of everything. And before we forget, let's go ahead and just copy and paste in the cursor component and get that working as well, because I know I'll forget something if I don't do it now. So now that we got that in there, we'll go back to the desktop, cursor, custom cursor, and we'll set this up to the exact same settings we just did. Left align, -12, -12, and I think this was 311, 76, and 1 for the physics. So I'm going to drag the cursor up here just to get it out of our way. And I'm going to drag out a frame. And I'm just going to drag this frame into desktop, and I'm going to drag it all the way down to the bottom below the top section. And we're going to call this section. We're going to make sure this is set to fill. And then for the height, I'm going to set it to our viewport 100 VH. And let's also add our minimum height value of 700 like we've been doing. So let's add a layout to this now. So we'll go stack, vertical, center, center. And then for the padding, let's add 32 to the right and the left. And then we can go ahead and remove the fill. So that's basically the section set up. We're just going to go up here and go to Insert, Media, and then Image, drag one in, set it to fill, and you see we have the padding on the side. And instead of setting the fill itself, we're going to set it as a variable to featured 1, and it will automatically set that up. And we're going to do that for all 3 of our featured images. So for the second one, we're going to go here and change the variable to featured 2. And then for the next one, featured 3. And then finally, I'm going to add in my GIF up top. So I'm going to go to the fill and choose my GIF. So I have my GIF and my 3 featured images. And then at the bottom, we're going to have a big green block section that's going to take us to the next project, because I want everyone to go from Naturefy to the next project to the next one and then back to the start. I want it to be an infinite loop. As they scroll down to the bottom, they can move on to the next one. Before we set that, however, I forgot to do the padding up here at the top. So with top section selected, on the left and the right, add 32 to match the rest of the design. All right, so to make this bottom section, I'm going to F for a frame and just drag one out. And immediately, I'm going to change the fill to our primary green color. That way, it's going to stand out. And I'm going to give it a just general name of bottom section. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to make sure that I drag this in to the bottom of the desktop. So it's below the last section there. And then we need to make sure that we update the width to fill, and the height, we're going to leave it fixed for now. So what we want to do in here is show the title of the next project, and we want to have a link to it. And to do that, we need to grab a hold of data outside of this page, and we need to grab it from the projects page. So by doing that, we need that CMS element once again. So I'll drag that in, and you'll see we have this. And to align this, we'll grab that bottom section and throw on a layout, vertical, centered. And for the padding, this is where we're going to determine the height of this section. So I'll add quite a bit to the top, so 300. And then all around, we need 32. So I'll set that for the right, bottom, and left. And then we can go up here and set the height to fit content. Now for project, let's make sure this is set to fill and the height is fit content. So just like we did before, I'm going to delete this project and just drag in a new frame. This time we're just going to create a column. And if we nest that here in projects, you'll see it automatically updates that icon to let us know it is working with the CMS, in which case this is perfect. You'll see we have several of these because right now under projects, we're limiting it to 10. I just want to show one. So I'll just put that in there. And then to style the projects, let's make sure we set this to fill. And then again, we'll fit the content. For the layout on this, I'm going to change the alignment to the bottom. And the gap, we'll just lower it down to something like 8. And then to save a little bit of time, we can go up to the top and just grab this bit of text, copy that. In the first frame, paste that in. And then for the right frame, let's go back to the work page and let's grab this explore link, copy that, and then select this frame, Command V to paste it. So let's first grab the first frame and remove the fill. And then for the styling, I'm going to set a layout on this at vertical, center, I'm left aligning it, and the gap will be 8. And I want the height to fit the content. And then for the right side, we will remove the fill once more. And so we can actually see it, I'm going to grab the text and change that to black. And let's also change this text here to black. And then for my icon, I'll update that here in a minute with a new SVG. But for now, we'll go back to this right side frame. And I'm going to add a layout. I'm going to distribute this at the end, so it's at the bottom and the right, and then we can remove the gap. Now for the icon, I'm just going to import a black version of it and delete the green, because obviously we can't see green on green. And then finally, I'm going to copy this text with Command C. Inside of this right side frame, I'm going to paste it. I'm going to drag it above our heading, and then we'll have it say next project. And I'm putting these square brackets just for a cool stylized look. And then if you want, you can name these left and right. I've been slacking a little bit with my organization lately, but we'll go ahead and update those and make sure both of these are set to fit content. And then you'll see this section turns out to be a really nice size. So currently this is showing the title of the current project, but what we wanted to show is the next one. So we have 3, so we want to show groups next. And how we're going to do that is with a bit of Framer wizardry. Now, this is a little difficult for me to figure out, but now that I know it, it's very easy to do, and I can implement it in tons of projects. So I'll show you how to do that now. So what we need to do is create an ID for each of our projects. So we'll go back to our CMS, and here on the projects, the 3 little dots, edit fields, and then we're going to go up here, hit the plus, and we're going to add a number. This number is going to be called ID. And this is just assigning a numerical value for each one of our projects. You'll see it here as it shows up in the drafts. And by default, we want this to step up 1. So this first one, whatever we set it to, will be 1. This next one will be 2. And the last one will be 3. And for the control, we want to swap it to the stepper and not the slider. So now that we've done that, we can just click out of that and assign the value for each one of our projects. So 1, 2, and finally 3. If we go back to the page and we grab projects, remember we can know it's the CMS object because it's got these 3 little disks stacked on top of each other. You'll see CMS content and we have filtering. So we can click on this. So I'm simply going to click this icon to add one. I'm going to choose the ID field. And I want this to be greater than the current value. Instead of setting that here manually, we can just go here to the value and set it to the ID. So the ID for this page is 1. So we want it to be greater than that, which naturally will give us 2. Now you won't see it change right away because we actually have to go in and set this variable to the project name, which I forgot to do. So make sure you have that. If it's not changing, that is why. So all this filter is simply doing is saying, hey, what's the ID of this page? It's 1. Okay, well, the greater one would be 2 and 3. But since we have it limited to 1, it's going to do the next one, which would be 2. So if I go now to the different page of groups, you'll see we have 4 pixels here. And then when I go to 4 pixels, you'll notice it breaks. And that is because there's nothing greater than the third one. And what we need to do is a little bit more work specifically for the last project to make it loop back. And I'm going to do that back in the CMS one more time. I'm going to go to the 3 little dots, edit field, and we're going to add a toggle. And I'm going to use this toggle as a Boolean variable. If you know what that is, it's simply a true or false, yes or no statement. And I'm just going to say is last project question mark. By default, the project is not going to be the last. I set it to no. And then for the last one, here 4 pixels is our final one, I'm going to set it to yes. So this is just giving us a way to identify which one is the last project so we can do this loop back to the beginning. So if I go back over here once more, what we need to do is select this empty collection list and hit Command D to create 2 of them. So what Framer does is by default, if there's nothing in them, I'll go ahead and show you the preview now. If there's nothing in them, they just display none. So they're not there, they're not taking up any space, which is perfect for what we want. So we need to set up a particular filter for this second one here on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the original filter. So it's going to go ahead and show all this information again since there's no filters on it. But if we go to a different page, you'll see we have 2 of these now because we didn't hide this. So with this selected, I'm going to go down to the visibility and I'm going to set the variable to is this the last project. So by setting that, this is yes, which means true. It's showing it on the last page. But now if I go back to groups, we're only seeing that other one with that filter of greater than showing the next page. Oh, if you'll notice, we don't actually have any links set up in this entire website yet. So we haven't covered that. So if you were to hit the play button, scroll all the way down to the bottom and try to click this, it's going to do nothing. So let's cover our first links with this custom one. So down here at the bottom on the first and second page, we're going to grab the view project link. What we want to do is hit the plus icon on this and link to, you can just click in this box and you can automatically grab the slug of the project that is over here. So we're already filtering down to groups and then we're going to link to groups. So now if I hit play and I scroll down, view project, we go to groups. Then if I scroll down, we go to 4 pixels. Now here we don't have this one set up yet because this is a different instance. We'll go to the 4 pixels page, aka our last page, and make sure we grab the explore link, which we'll rename, match the other one. Again, we'll add the link, grab the slug. Simple as that. Now we have an infinite loop through all of our case studies or projects. So now that we've set up one link, we can go ahead and set up the rest of them. But to do so, we need to go ahead and make the contact page because it's the last and simplest page. So before we set up all the links, let's just go ahead and create that. So going back over here to pages, we'll just hit plus, new page, and I'll call this contact. Now I want this page to be white so it stands out and it's a little bit different. So we'll set it to our 0 color. And then with our desktop selected, we need to set this to 1568. Like the rest of our pages, then F on the keyboard, and we'll just drag in a simple frame and create our section. So I'll just call this section, and we're going to make this set to relative 100%. And then we are going to set it to viewport 100% VH. And then by clicking on the desktop, we will set it to fit content. And to align it, it will automatically add a layout. And we'll make sure it's all vertical and centered. Then we can select the section and just remove the fill. I'm going to drag this down just a little bit. And now all we have to do is copy and paste some stuff over. So let's go to the home page. I'm going to grab the nav logo and nav links and Command C. Selecting the desktop, Command V. And that will actually keep their position correctly, so we don't have to adjust that. And I'm just going to go all the way down here to the bottom and grab this footer, copy that. Then on our contact page, we'll paste that in. And this one only has 2 columns, so I'll just duplicate the left and call it center. And then we just got to change the distribute to center, and that will center align it. And then I'm going to grab the project page button here, the view project link, copy that, paste it into the center, and just delete the other text there. And before I forget, since this is actually linked, let's go ahead and remove everything from here. So I'm just going to completely remove that link and update it with a new link to the actual work page. So when they click on this, it will take them to the work page, displaying all of our projects. Finally, we have this section set up. Let's add a simple layout, make sure it's center, and then we'll add some text right into the center of the section. We'll give it a style of heading big, and I'll put the word contact in. And that's our basic contact page. Super simple. So now we got to make sure all of our links work, and then that will be it for today's video. So the only other link that's really different than any other ones we're about to do is the contact. This is a mail to. And how you do that is with the link, you simply just type in mail to, and then you put a semicolon, and then you put in the email you want it to email to. So I'm just going to put in a random one for now. And then it's going to create this link style by default. So I'll just click edit, and I'm going to change the color back to black. And same thing for the hover. I want it to be black, but to distinguish the hover, I'm going to have the underline decoration. And so now anyone who clicks on this will be able to email that email that I put. So make sure you put your own email here that you want people to contact you at. Here in the bottom, you can also link this to mail to. I'm just not going to link that for this tutorial. It's not going to be a finished website, so I'm just not going to link it. In this, you can link to your Instagram, YouTube, whatever you want, or if you have a website with all of your social media links, go ahead. But the next thing we need to do is the text here. I'm going to link this to the home page. And again, I want to make sure the style is the same one we just did. It's going to be black, black with the underline underneath it. Then for work, we're going to link that obviously to the work page. And for contact, we will also link that to the contact page. So you want to simply go through all of your navigations on all the pages and make sure all of them are linking to the appropriate thing. For the logo itself, you'll notice when I hit play, we have it underlined. That is the active state. So I want to make sure that I change this specifically for the logo since I don't want that underline. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a new style, and I'm just going to edit this and make it 900 and the hover 900 with a decoration. But here for the current, I want it to have no decoration. So now when I hit play, it's not underlined permanently. When I go to contact, we're on the contact, so it stays underlined. Now we can go back to the home. So just make sure you go through and set up all of your links. That way, nothing is broken on the site, and it takes you to the appropriate pages. Now, the only 2 links that are really different are these here on the home screen in the hero. I don't want the link to be on the text. I want it to be on the actual grouping itself, which we called left and right. And the reason for this is I want you to be able to navigate whenever you click over here when it's being highlighted. So in our interaction, if we even hover over here, we're getting that thumbnail showing us that this is the page we're going to. So I should be able to click here and it take me to this page instead of having to make sure I'm hovered on the text there. So with left selected, I'm going to go up here to link, and we're going to choose the work slug, and then we can choose the project that we need to go to. So I'm going to select groups, and the same thing over here for the right. Make sure you select the right frame and then choose the slug for the appropriate project. And there we go. When I click this, we go to the right project. That's going to do it for today's video. Of course, make sure you check out Framer with the link at the top of the description if you haven't already. So you don't miss any of the future videos of this course, make sure you subscribe and turn that notification bell on. As always, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.